After rationalising most of the assets of Henry Jones out and having two good plants, Tom Piper and Kyabram, we were on a growth path in our food business, but we still weren't big enough and we were in the wrong part of the food business. Canned fruit and jam making were declining markets and not very profitable because we were competing against the cooperatives. So we started to look for other businesses in the food area that we could invest in. And Peter Scanlon stopped running the food business and went on to strategy with Bob Cowper, and they went to work. And they came up with a listed company called Provincial Traders, which had a market capitalisation of about 18 million. It was essentially in the chicken processing business and one of the three major margarine producers in Australia. We didn't want to be in the chicken business because the Inghams dominated it. So I finished up ringing Bob Ingham out of the blue. He ran it. His brother Jack ran the racehorse business, both very successful. And he basically, as soon as I mentioned, look, we'll buy Provincial Traders, he thought that's a fantastic idea, come up and have a chat. So we then nutted out a strategy where he'd take the whole of the chicken business, we would take the margarine business, and then Henry Jones, would do the bidding. So we went straight into action because we'd done a lot of research on the company, and we bid a bit over 20 million for Provincial Traders, which we had to go 50-50 roughly with Bob. And immediately we made the bid, the director said it's not enough money. Then Joe Jelke Peterson, who was the Premier of Queensland, got very nasty in the press. He didn't want these southern raiders coming up to take over good Queensland businesses. And we weren't far away from getting agreement. We'd upped our bid a couple of times, a few cents here and there. Anyway, I rang Bob and said, hey, we could be in a bit of trouble here. Old Joe might step in and stop us. I said, if I put this thing up another, I think it was 50 cents, I think we'll get the deal. Not 50 cents, 5 cents, we'll get the deal. So he said, do it. So we did that, and we got agreement from the board straight away. And we then went on to complete the purchase. The funny thing about Joe Jelke was, once it had been agreed, a week after it had all been agreed, the National Party in Queensland were having a fundraising at the Southern Cross in Melbourne. And Joe was coming down to raise money. All of a sudden I got an invitation. And when I got to the luncheon, I'm sitting on Joe's right. And Joe was full of praise about what a wonderful idea it is for people like us to come up to Queensland and invest in the country, in that part of the world. So I had to give him a decent donation, and we had him on side from there on. The great thing about dealing with Bob Ingham was we had nothing in writing. We did everything on a handshake, and we even had to put a fence which went all over this property because they produced the chickens and the margarine on the same factory, the same plant. We had to put a fence through it which went all different ways. We got down to the point where there were a few workers who didn't work for either division but were just general workers, and we figured out nobody wanted them because they were the troublemakers, and I think you could call them communists at the time. And so I said to Bob, what are we going to do about this? Because we had to take all the workers. He said, we'll toss for it. So we tossed for it. I finished up losing. I got 3 of them and he got 1. That's how we sorted out our problems. And then right at the end there was a debate over, I think it was $20,000 of legal bills, whether we should pay them or he should pay them. And we were having a celebratory luncheon in Sydney, and all the lawyers from both sides turned up at the luncheon. And Bob said to me, look at us buying these bastards lunch when all they're doing is, charging us a fortune. John, I've worked out something. Why don't we toss for the 20,000 or split it down the middle, 10 each, and then we'll get rid of them all. We won't have them here for lunch. So we decided to split it 10 each, and then Bobby got up and told them all to leave because the matter had been resolved and they weren't going to participate in the celebration. It was a very good deal, and from Henry Jones' point of view, it gave us a much greater strength in dealing with the food retailers, Coles, Woolworths, and of course Foodland were pretty strong in those days as well. And having another thing other than canned fruit and jam and meat in our coterie of things to sell, we now had margarine, which was a good profitable business. It's there I got to know Jack Lieberman, because he became one of our competitors, and he was a great man to work with and against. And Provincial Traders turned out to be a very good purchase. Again, we followed the pattern which we had with acquisitions. We looked at all the staff. We inherited the number 2 guy at Provincial Traders, who was Michael Nugent, and he became one of the top 7 executives in our combined group for the next 15 years. A good buy.